you want to learn how to draw eyes or learn how to draw them a different way or better, well, I can help you. It's the Lily Factor. Ding! The first thing I want you to do is to hunt down a permanent marker. I grabbed a fine point Sharpie, but it doesn't really matter what kind of marker it is, how thick it is. I mean, it shouldn't be really thick to where it like could take up half of the paper, but you know, something that's reasonable to draw with, that is a permanent marker. Then find a pen, any type of pen, then find a colored pencil and a regular pencil, and include an eraser because you're going to want to use that. Now, time to draw some eyes. We're going to start, first things first, with this Sharpie here, but we're going to section this off so we won't have any nerves about where we're drawing or how big it's going to be. Obviously, I didn't draw it very even, but that is perfectly fine. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put something under it just because it's permanent marker and this is a white desk. So for any of you who are using a permanent marker that will bleed through paper, I would suggest that you have something under it. Also suggest, doesn't matter really what kind of paper you get, but I would suggest that it's not cardstock paper, just because it's a little harder to erase mistakes, especially if you press hard. The reason I'm using a permanent marker and that I'm suggesting everyone else does is it's going to help us kind of loosen up our drawing a bit, and it's going to help us feel better about whatever we draw in these next panels, because no matter what we draw, nothing is going to be as weird looking as what we'll do here, since we can't draw light with this, and B, we're not going to be able to erase anything, hence the difficulty. I'll explain a little bit more technique on this when I'm not using something that I can't erase or can't go on top of, since especially Sharpies are not buildable, but maybe you guys got lucky and got a marker that you can build on top of. Okay, so we've really gotten a lot of outlines and wrinkles to this eye, blatantly obvious, and that's all right. This isn't a beautiful eye so far, but this is definitely helping just get that basic idea, shape, and outline to an eye. Next, we're gonna kind of go over with some eyelashes. The good thing about eyelashes is you don't have to stay on this border curve of the eye, because some eyelashes are gonna be coming different direction, so some can stay on top of that very top line of an eyelid, but others are going to kind of curve down and give it more length, which is great because then it makes us as artists feel less pressured to draw it right. And then the tiny little thin eyelashes at the bottom, I'm not going to draw too detailed. These you want to keep very short and sometimes not very visible, just because they're so tiny that, especially if you're drawing a smaller illustration, they're not even noticeable. There's sort of lighting on the eye, so I'm just gonna draw an outline of it. Everything is really outlined. It's making things very foreign to me, but this is good because it's gonna give us that understanding of basically an eye as if it were in a coloring book. But then we can apply that to these next few versions and really make it look like a real eye. And then we won't feel bad like, oh, this drawing isn't any good, because we'll be looking at this going, well, no matter how bad we drew any of these, this one's still the worst looking of the bunch. All right, and there we go. That was drawing of an eye and marker. I was not able to build up anything. It made things a little complicated, but that was pretty good for a basic idea. So if you guys are done with your marker eye, and this could just be you drawing out how you typically draw an eye or what you think an eye would look like from your former experience. But now that you've gotten that training with drawing it with a marker, now we're going to discuss how to draw an eye, but we're doing it in pen. This is going to make it still a little hard, but it's going to turn out better than our marker version here because we're going to be able to draw lighter with it. So the reason why I'm having this draw in pen next is it's the same as the marker. It's not going to be erasable, but this time the pen is buildable, which is going to make it important for us to draw very light with it. Very light. So usually if we were to draw a circle, it would look something like that, right? Well, we could do that if you want to, but then I'd want you to add something like this amongst that circle, and then make sure that center of your circle isn't so big. And then you'll get more of an outline of an eye. Or you can do a squashed up oval, very light. Keep it light, everyone. And then just kind of build on top of it to where it's more like an eye. I'm going to use that technique I just did because some eyes are going to be like this, where they're more wide, but then there are eyes like this where they're narrower, or they say, you know, someone's wearing makeup and they give themselves like eyeshadow, and it kind of just doesn't look that way. So we're going to do sort of squashed up oval. If you're using your pen, be sure to start really light, okay? Very light. And we're actually going to change the direction of this because it's important to make sure that we're not just drawing an eye from one angle, because then it gets you to be afraid of drawing the other eye, am I right? Sometimes it's scary to move on to the next eye after you've done the first eye so well. I know, art can be really nerve-wracking, but it's okay, we're going to do this. We will draw some eyes that we will be very proud of, I promise you guys. So you can see very close in there are some lines from the blue ink of my blue pen that are pretty clear and they're pretty dark blue, but then there's others here like this line that are very light. That's the wonders of pen, and that's how pencil functions, is you can draw lighter and darker. So it's important in art to draw very light, but by doing it with pen where you don't have the option to erase, it helps you adjust to drawing lighter faster than trying to teach yourself through drawing with pencil. So we've got our squished up oval with this sort of tiny little circle right here, and then we're gonna just section off that circle right here so it almost matches that oval again, except it has this little extension of a circle right next to it here like that. And then we're gonna draw a circle, and make sure you're doing it very light, and you can draw a whole circle, but then you'll squeeze it in to where some of the circle is cropped off and it's put in the center of the eye, like so. Now this person's eyes are very squinted in the reference, so I'm just gonna kind of go over on top, since I sketched it out pretty light in pencil and I tried to make it wider, and I'm gonna build it down smaller to give that person's eye more like their shape. Now, another thing we've noticed here from this eye is there's a line sometimes that goes right on top of the eye there. And so for this person's eye, it's the exact same way. We're gonna make sure we keep it fairly light. And the eye, this line above the eye is gonna come down right here to where that mystical circle is. Now, what's really unique about eyes is it's always at the very end corners of the eyes. So where this little mystical circle is, right across from it is always going to be where the thickest part of the eyelashes are. That's where the majority of the eyelashes are clumped together. So you're going to want to draw more and more eyelashes together like so, and they're going to be curved little C's like that. You'll try and make it less curved like a C though as you go. So there's going to be, you can make it a little sloppy. You can have some that are really curved like this, and then some that aren't as curved like that. And sometimes that does work for an eye. Some people have lashes like that. So sometimes it just works out. And that's what's beautiful about eyes, is there's a lot of variety. And that's why I'm using different eyes, is to show you guys the fundamentals of how there are a lot of variety pieces in drawing eyes. Now, I want you guys to be a little light with your pen and draw underneath where you're drawing these top eyelashes, and just kind of slightly shade it in there, because there is a shadow right on the top and sometimes a little bit on the bottom of eyes, and it's always there. Sometimes we don't think it is, but it's there. So it's always important to do that to give it that three-dimensional pop, make it look more like a real eye. And sometimes even in cartoons with less realistic eyes, they still add a little bit of shading on the top and the bottom part of the eye. So it's important to know these things. We might think, okay, the eyelashes just like go here, 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 and like especially over here we just go nutty, but there's a top eyelid and then there's bottom. So right about here is where the lashes come to an end, and then you just draw a thicker corner here of like a darker shade, and then you come down from this side, and that's where your new set of lashes start on the bottom eyelid. So they're not going to group around together like that, but you will try and make it a little bit thicker and maybe add a few miniature ones in some cases, just so it's not so separate to where it's like you have your eye and then you have some lashes here and then here, and there's like this huge gap. So that's why you'll add a little bit of shading to just kind of make it more subtle, like so. Add a few tinier lashes. She's got a little point right here in her eye. And then it's important to pay attention to the pupil, because sometimes pupils can be really big like this, like the silly little facial expression this person had. And then sometimes the pupils can be really thin, because say someone's taking a photograph of someone and they use like a hard flash, well, the pupil's gonna get smaller. And then in other cases, there's just different reasons why it's thinner. But we're not gonna make it too thin. That would be more of a stylized thing if we gave it like this little miniature pupil like that. And sometimes it can be like better for, you know, creepier expression, but we don't want to creep people out in this tutorial, so keep it thick, guys. But sometimes the width of the pupil can help us decide on what kind of expression this person has. Now, what's really important is to go over these edges of this centerpiece of the eye, where we drew our little cropped off circle. We really want those to be hard and have a slightly thick width, but not too thick. We don't want it to be really close to this pupil. So make sure that you have some harder parts there, which, hey, you know, finally we get to draw something harder other than the eyelashes, am I right? Where I'm gonna add a little line under the bottom eyelid, just because that's also important in drawing eyes. Everyone's got, you know, a few bags under their eyes. I'm gonna be really light, but just draw some lines for shading, so the lines can look like this. And then just be really close together, like that. And that'll help kind of shade it, but not make it too obvious, especially since we're using pen, so we can't really smudge anything. But it also works great for pencil to draw these kind of lines. And sometimes they're not that noticeable, but I mean, in pen it's gonna be noticeable because it's pen. What can we do? There's always gonna be a lighter patch right either under the eyelashes, or sometimes a little bit above the eyelashes, depending on the angle. That's just part of the shading. I could go into long, detailed rants about why lighting works a certain way on eyes, but sometimes it just doesn't really matter. We don't really need to care about that. So there's my really brief explanation on a little bit of lighting and shadowing for an eye. This is awesome. So she actually does have that one little white spot right there on the eye, but another thing I noticed is her eye is squinting. And because of a certain way the lighting's hitting, she's got some harder shadows here in the white part of the eye, but she also has a really dark patch on this top side of her pupil as well. So we're gonna kind of draw some, and on the bottom, so we're gonna draw some dark patches on the top and the bottom, and then we're gonna just kind of corner it out as well. Then we'll just shade lightly in the rest of those parts and leave that little white gap, but make sure it's not too obvious that you just drew a harsh circle. So when you're drawing that, don't make it to where it's like, boom, this really hard pressed circle there, because then when you're shading it in, people will notice that. But sometimes it's a stylized thing. So don't feel bad about it. If you have a style of the way and you have a certain way you like something, I'm not throwing you under the bus and going your methods are wrong. Everyone has their own way of drawing things, and everyone has different opinions of how it looks and how it works. So stick to your style, it's great. So from the eye next to the nose, there's sometimes a little shadow right here. And then kind of, there's always like a darker patch right here before we get to the eyebrow, and she's got an awesome eyebrow. They're so great for, especially when you're starting out in drawing, because they're this little outlined chunk that you just kind of draw like so, and you'll kind of want to line this section here, make it like our lined eyebrow down there, and then boom, like that. So it's awesome, because sometimes we just want to draw eyebrows that are like whoop, whoop, whoop. But sometimes it looks weird. Well, luckily for us, this lady's eyebrows are that way, and they don't look weird because they're part of her look. So it's awesome. Eyes can also help you define kind of race or age. Eyes are definitely a strong point and a facial feature, so it's really great that you guys are trying to find out how to draw eyes. It really helps define, even some people's art styles are really well defined by how they draw eyes. So eyes are fundamentals, people. That's why this face drawing series is starting with the eyes, because eyes are so important. You guys just don't know how important these eyes are. I really suggest though using this line shading where it's just line, 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 line. Then the closer together the lines are and the harder you press, the darker it gets. So that's me just pressing really hard. But say I'm drawing really light with this pen, especially because it's important to draw light but also in pen. I start light here and I'm staying light, but the lines are closer together, and then I can just build on top of it and go right on top of it harder. Whereas with this Sharpie drawing, I was not able to do that. I know, you guys are probably super mad, like, oh, I had to draw in pen and Sharpie, but I promise you, this will help you for the next phase, which will be colored pencil. Fun, right? So, colored pencil. Colored pencils are slightly more erasable, but you can't erase as well as you can with a pencil. But I can promise you, unless you have some really weird colored pencil, you can erase a little bit, which will help you, but also make you still want to draw light. Then when you draw an eye in pencil, you'll really have it. So, whoa, that just like, whoo! Oh, well, next eye. So actually, also it would be really fun if you guys could label this. So like, marker, eye, pen eye. You can even write down what brand, you know, you used or something. I'm just gonna do that. So we have it labeled, and this is a chart you can always come back to either see how you've improved or to remember how to do it so you can try it again. It's really fun though. My biggest suggestion is, especially if you're starting out artist, you may look at these and be like, oh, I can't draw like that. But I promise you, if you practice and you continue to try these kind of fundamentals, you will be able to draw eyes like this and this, but 100 times better. I promise you, practice makes perfect. This one is different. So sometimes either when it comes to like older age, the eyes get baggier, or it's a certain facial expression, or sometimes people's eyes are just this way. But we're gonna start and it's going to be more squinty. So we're going to start with actually one little small curve right there, and then we're going to slant it right upward, right about there, and then we're going to come down. We're also drawing in blue. I'm going to zoom this in for you guys a bit so you can see it better. And then we're going to draw a curve right under here, and then draw one more curve for the mysterious circle part of the eye. And then we're gonna draw that little line right there. And there we have that. Now typically guys have, some of them too, have really long eyelashes, but this particular person's eye does not have any eyelashes, and I'm not sure if it's just the photo is not making them visible or what, but he just has these darker lines on the top of his eye. So we're gonna kind of shade those in a bit, like so. Then we're gonna do that circle again, but it's gonna be cropped off again. All these people are looking one direction. You ever feel like you're being watched at all? Anybody? Oh, fun stuff. I can make eye puns all day. Not really. Wow, I drew this really slanted. I don't know why. So if you're drawing slanted, either tilt the paper or fix it. And see, like I said, now that we're drawing in colored pencil, we can slightly erase things. Not a whole lot, but watch. Unless your colored pencil is crazy. But see? Ta-da! Erased slightly. Yeah, that straightened out better. It was just like a little out of whack. But some people have slanted eyes, you know, not an impossibility. And then he is actually gonna have a little, so you really want to start with like a wide eye, but then you can just kind of build it down to where it gets squintier. Especially if you're like me, where you like to draw cartoon eyes that are really big. I have that problem. So this helps me by starting big and then simmering it down rather than just thinking I was drawing big, only to know that I wasn't. And then like people are like, well, but it looks like them, but their eyes are bigger. That has happened. I really love how he has this little blob right here that's shaded in, part of his eye. And there's like a light little shadow right there. And once again, so I talked about how it's either under the eyelashes or it's right where the eyelashes are hitting the eyelid, depending on the angle. It's where you're gonna want to have that lighter spot. And lucky for us, he has some eyelashes actually right here where the eyelid is at. We're gonna want some darker shadows right here, but make sure you leave one harsh outline right here just so you can define where his eyes ended. Even though in the actual photo, and sometimes this just happens and you're gonna have to do your own thing even if you're trying to copy by photo. In the photo he doesn't have this harsh line, but when we're shading it, especially if you're using like this colored pencil here, it's gonna be hard for people to know where his eye is connected. And so that's where you have to tell people what to see in your drawing. Sometimes harsh outlines are the key. He's got a small little pupil coming out from the bottom here. His eye is actually the same as hers in the photograph, so it's that really bright lighting kind of element. And then we're gonna do the same thing as we would do with any of these kind of outlines in front of the pupil, is we make it really hard and slightly thick, not too thick. We still want a little white gap. And then this part is actually going to be super dark. But sometimes lighting makes that hard to tell. I'm talking about my own lighting, I'm getting a glare. Okay, and then we'll just shade that in. He has a few dots, so we can draw like some dots here, some dots here. I know a lot of drawings on like how to draw eyes and stuff, people have like this incredible immaculate detail where it's just, you can see every little like part of the eye, and it always makes you go like, how come I draw a portrait and it doesn't look like that? Well, one of the things is how big they're drawing. So if they're drawing it really big, they can add all that detail. But since I'm drawing smaller, because you can see how big my finger is next to this drawing, it's smaller, and so it's not going to be as detailed. And we're gonna have to just tell people what to see through these details, tell people that it's an eye, because we're not drawing so large to add every single tiny little detail in an eye. That's just the truth of the matter. I'm like holding my paper up because I'm noticing that some details are not being visible due to glares. So here's what we have so far. I bet you can already see some improvement, especially from the old marker eye. And we grew a lot on just drawing lighter with the pen eye, to the point where the colored pencil eye was actually kind of light. It just depends on what colored pencil. This one, the pigment doesn't get on the paper very well, so it's very light. But drawing in marker and pen definitely helped with things. Marker with just making sure the lines were thinner, pen with drawing light and then building on top of it. Now we're gonna get into the next eye. Super fun. It's the last eye that we all really look forward to because it's gonna be drawn in pencil. So that means Eraser City. Yeah, that's right. But I hope that doing these helped you guys not rely on the eraser so much. So it's important to not have to rely on the eraser, because then you're drawing things the way you like it, and that's a good thing. This eye is creeping me out, so I'm just gonna, so I told you guys you can, start with a circle and then like build that oval shape around it, but we're just not even following that today, huh? This is definitely an eye that is way too thin for that. So we're gonna start with a curved line right here. It's not actually curved, it's more of just a slanted line. It's gonna come over and curve like this, and we're gonna draw this very thin little mystical circle. It's very thin this time, much thinner than any of the other times. And this person's eye has a very happy expression, so it's gonna be curved up more for expressions. If you guys want to hear a little bit more about drawing expressions in eyes, let me know and I can do like facial expression stuff. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So we're gonna draw once again that harsher dark outline so we can separate the two and then have that shadow come in here. Another harsh outline here because there's an eyeliner part of the eyelash coming in. Now this person has very interesting eyelashes, so it's actually gonna come out curved like that. I know, it just totally contradicts everything we've learned. Just continues to come down like that. Then there's also some lashes that come up here to where it's shaded in like that. It's really different from how we go about it. I'm gonna erase this down a little bit. We got that a little too close. And then we're gonna draw, so this one's actually looking a different direction, finally. We're gonna draw that circle coming from the side here. Shade that in a bit. It's a little hard sometimes when you're drawing because you'll get a glare. So this person has dark brown eye color. So we're gonna draw a little circle there because that's where the lighting is coming and hitting her eye. But here's the thing, and this will also happen even for people without, brown eyes and such. When you're drawing smaller, sometimes you'll just have to fill in the entire eye one shade. It's not that it's really just all one shade, but it looks that way because of shadows and just the color of the eye. So we're gonna draw the hard people in there, but we're going to shade just slightly lighter on top of it. Shade it in light And with pencil, you can just smudge it with your finger to soften it out. Once again, we have the eyebrow drawing luxury of the century. It's gonna be that rectangular block kind of eyebrow. So she also has a little bit of a shadow here, and it's not necessarily a shadow. It's just a part of her eyebrows because they were stylized. Just made it give her that little shadow on her eyebrow. There are blenders that you can use. You can purchase them Michael's, Hobby Lobby, your local art store, and you can use those to smudge if you don't like using your finger. Also, you guys should totally date these. It is important to date your art. So, everyone, whatever day it is you're drawing, I am drawing on Halloween, yay. And boom! So there it is, everybody. Some eye drawing tutorials. I hope this was helpful. These are 4 different kinds of eyes. We've got 2 different genders and a couple of different races. And it was awesome to give that variety, since I've noticed that looking around, there aren't a lot of variety-filled eye drawing tutorials out there. So I hope that you guys were able to learn a little bit more about drawing eyes. Sorry, I'm a perfectionist. My subscribers are aware of that, but I will just keep adding as I talk. That's how I function. But anyway, I hope this was able to teach you a little bit more from what you already knew, help you improve. And if you press hard as you draw, I hope this taught you to draw lighter and to draw thinner. I hope it taught you some fundamentals of shading. But here are 4 different eyes and how to draw them using different utensils and pointing out some of the fundamentals of it. This was so much fun. I'd like to thank Alasia for suggesting that I do this tutorial. You're awesome. She helped encourage me and inspire me to actually start a YouTube channel. So of course, I am really excited that I was able to return a little bit of the favor. That being said, thank you everyone for watching. And if you want more tutorials, or if you have any suggestions, or if you want just a little more on how to draw eyes, maybe shading a bit, or just pinpointing out shadows and more things like that, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching. You guys did great. I'm not technically able to see what you drew, but I know deep down, my heart of hearts, that you all drew something amazing, and it was definitely, for each of us, better than that, what we started out with. So, thank you all for watching. Good luck in life and in art, and stay tuned for more upcoming tutorials. Bye!